Okay. So, Casey Lowry did a live stream about his song called 27,000. And this is a weird thing to me because I've talked about this guy before on this show. And so it's a different feeling, and there are time zone and there are time zone differences. He went live. There are time zone differences, and I think a lot of time zone differences are funny and hard to manage. I think, without a doubt, if you ask an artist, the time zone, like how different the time zone is in each place, they'll probably say it's very different. Because in the States it's 4 a.m. In Prague it's 1 a.m. In Geneva is 1 a.m. In Italy is 1 a.m. So what I'm getting at, and when in St. Petersburg it's 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. Vancouver 4 p.m. So what I'll say is time zones are very hard to manage, and I think Casey Lowry did a great job on his live. I'm sorry for the people that live in the States where you kind of had to wait like a few hours before you could listen to the song. But I think he always does great to when he does a song, when he releases a song. I think he always does great. That's without a doubt. So 27,000. 27,000 is a song that he recently released. And 27,000 is roughly it's 27,000 is how many is what people claim people will say is a long time for is rough. People say roughly 73,000 years, depending on who you ask. Is yeah, so roughly 73,000 73 years. And it's a weird thing to, that's probably the better way to put it. You'll live for 73 years instead of 27,000 27,000 days, which I do like that. I think there aren't many artists that would have found a way to produce this well. He's from the United Kingdom, and let's see if we have any sponsors, and then I'll get into this song, which I think is kind of a great song, but it has so much meaning to it.
Cheinho de ofertas. Fica que vai ter bolo e também tem muito ponto. Aniversário Livelo, recheados de descontos. Juntar e trocar os pontos por viagem e produtos. Tem também o cashback, aproveitar, baixe o app. Tudo de pontos pra você. Livelo, tudo de pontos pra você. Livelo, o cadastro é grátis e já dá pra começar. Tudo de pontos pra você. Livelo.
Okay, so 27,000. It says the average person will spend 27,000 days, which is 73 years, which I think a lot of people will go, can I get the years? Because I don't necessarily know what 27,000 days are. And I think, and that's very understandable. I think a lot of people won't do it in their head, won't do the math. And it's a very catchy song either way. They spent 27,000 days looking at you. Which is a great thing. I think 73 years is roughly, we'll go 73 years, right? So it's from when they first are interested in you, when they look at you, it's kind of like the stages of life in a way, where they'll find you, they'll look at you, they'll come in contact with you. If your connection is strong, then you will see each other until the end of days, which is I think that's, he said it better to put it to the end of days. He says watching BBC, falling asleep, and I think BBC isn't as popular in the States as it is in the United Kingdom, Sweden, and other countries. In other countries, it's kind of normal. If you're in the UK, it's popular. In the States, it's probably not as popular, which I think is understandable. To a degree, I think, a lot of people probably do watch BBC and they're falling asleep. Top Gear is great to watch on BBC. But I think he says, and in the song, he said, "I loved your mother. She never lied to me," which I think is an idea which I think is perfect for love. Like, in no relationship should you ever lie to anybody or cause anybody any ill will. But I think people think that white lies and telling lies. But if it's true love, or if it's love, you'll never feel like the reason to lie to your partner or your significant other, which I think is great to know that they never lie to you. When you're 27,000 or 26,000 something. When you had that 72 years and know that y'all in the relationship y'all were great and everything was fine and you were never lied to, I think that is probably one of the best feelings. But I do understand that, white lies and stuff like this. And he says the 20s is something he's going to is not something he's going to forget, in a sense, because it's a weird thing. And I think it happens to a lot of people because people believe in their 20s that or we'll go 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. People say you'll have your life ahead of you. You'll have 18, we'll go 18, 19, 20, and early 20s, right? People say you have your whole life ahead of you in your 20s. And depending on how big of a social media person you are, that's true. But he adds the reality of friends are getting married and having children, and I'm messing up. He didn't use the word messed up, but I'm going to use the word messed up. Messed up. I keep messing up as in time to make some money, find me a wife and some kids. It's a weird thing, and I think if you're obsessed with social media enough, you will find friends or people that you were in classes with or graduated the year you did, and you're like, oh, they're getting married in their 20s. I'm not married in my 20s, or I'm not finding a partner that I will marry in my 20s. And that's kind of you're like, oh, that's kind of sad that that's not happening. But that's not true. Because a lot of people say, it's weird. A lot of people say, have fun or do everything in your 20s because it's a weird metaphor. But I don't think, if you ask me, is the metaphor flawed? Slightly. I think live your 20s the way you want to live your 20s, and don't try to do it to a scale of social norms where, oh, I got to get married before 25, or I got to do this before 23, or I got to do this before 20. Like, I think everyone's in their own race. And so don't try to, just because you know people that are getting married, don't force yourself to try to get married. And I think it's a weird thing. It's definitely a weird thing and a weird concept of, oh, I got to have children because everyone I know is having children. Children aren't for everybody. And I know, there are some people that are like, I don't really care for children at all. Some people are like, maybe in my later years. And I get that. So don't feel pressured to do anything in your 20s Because in your 20s, some people, you're going to mess up in your 20s. That's just the simple truth of it. That sounds weird coming from me for many reasons, but I won't get on why that sounds so weird coming from me. But yeah, in your 20s, you're going to mess up. It's not, no one's perfect, especially in your 20s. No one's perfect. Your early 20s, definitely not. You're going to make some mistakes. That's just life. He says, but I'm scared to mess up. And I think that's a lot of people. But then you have to realize you're still getting to know yourself. You're still getting to know yourself for a few years. It's not like in high school where you thought you knew yourself, or depending on when you went to college, you're still getting to know yourself in college too. So your 20s are where you know yourself. 18 and 19, you can say you know yourself completely, but in your 20s, when you're in your early 20s, that's when you really get to know yourself. The new version of you that not many people know of. And he ends it with, it's a heavy thing to be in your 20s. It is, because it's how people look at people in their 20s, and how everyone's supposed to be act a certain way in their 20s. And that's not everybody. Everyone has different personalities, and everybody has different things. So I don't say, well, you got to be this way because blah, blah, blah. I don't truly believe that. Like, I think everyone's completely different. No two people are the same. Now, you might share the same personality or the same interests, but in your 20s, you're just finding yourself. So overall, I love this message that this song gives off. And to spend the rest of your life, you have to get to know yourself first, and that begins in your 20s. I know all of this sounds kind of like, that's a weird thing to say. But it's kind of true. I think you're getting to find yourself in your 20s, and this song just is that perfect message of, hey, this is what this is kind of going against the social norms. And I'm a sucker for anything that goes against social norms, depending on what it is. I always think everyone's in their own race. The message behind the song is definitely an 8 out of 10. The song is an 8 out of 10. I like the song. I like the music. I like the message. The song has a message behind it, and it's a message a lot of people can focus on in their 20s. But overall, I hope y'all like the song a little bit, and I hope if you're in your 20s, you're not stressing out too much, because a lot of people make mistakes in their 20s that, you can always bounce back from, no matter what it is. No judgment.